The Solitaire Series, Episode 20, The Five of Diamonds, by Troy Lambert. Narrated by Troy Lambert. Copyright 2020. Audio copyright 2025. Cynthia, meet Sherman. Sherman? Cynthia. Cynthia's real name was Janice, but if even a single person in this room learned her real name and what she really did for a living, she would be dead. Death was one of the many things she'd be happy to wait for. "Nice to meet you," she said, holding out a delicate hand. She hated this role, that of a weak but intelligent woman. To those here, she was a gambler, potentially a professional one and maybe even a card counter, but all in all, harmless. Her undercover role didn't betray her law enforcement training or connection, or the delicate balance she was trying to strike between the Nevada Gaming Commission and her primary employer, the FBI. Nothing she'd seen so far here was illegal in a strict interpretation of the law, but she hoped her actions would soon reveal the dark side of this place. The dealer in front of her wore spectacles perched on a long nose backed by a narrow face and beady eyes. When she first walked up, she thought he was sitting, but it turned out he was indeed that short. His hands were small, tiny things protruding from the sleeves of a tuxedo he must have purchased in the children's department or at a specialty store. He wore a wedding ring on his left hand, but there didn't seem to be enough finger to hold it in place for any length of time. Nevertheless, it stayed as he deftly shuffled the deck, and not for the first time, it occurred to her that appearances could be deceiving. While that often worked to her advantage, it would pay for her to remember that it worked both ways. "The pleasure is mine," he said, but didn't move to shake her hand. Instead, he kept up the shuffle. The room was filled with the volume of conversation, but at the moment she was the only occupant of this table. The backroom game, which had required the 8 of clubs card she had been given to get in, required a minimum buy-in of $2,000. The table she sat at now required $5,000. That wasn't a problem for her. Not only did the FBI stake her well, but in her 3 years of undercover work, she'd actually become a pretty adept gambler and card counter. Her own stake, legally obtained of course, was greater than her annual salary. There was, of course, a strategy. Even if you could, you had to be careful not to win all the time. That drew the kind of attention you didn't want. Sometimes you actually wanted to lose. Also, there was a persona you had to keep up. If you inspired others to gamble, the house would often let you win, or even cheat on the side to ensure you were happy and would return. Anyone who told you something different was a liar. The odds always favored the house, for sure. That's how casinos made their money. But if you thought for some reason that those odds were never manipulated to the outcome they wanted, well, that's where the Gaming Commission was supposed to come in. They were supposed to keep things fair. That in itself was a gamble. She was new here, her first time she'd been in this club. In that case, the house often wanted you to win. After all, they wanted you to come back, especially if you were a high roller. In this case, Cynthia would prefer to lose early and fast. But if she threw the game and lost too fast, that would be just as suspicious as winning. She ordered a drink, and before it arrived, another player came over and joined the table, a man in a silk suit who looked eminently bored. "Cynthia," she said, introducing herself as he sat down. He simply looked over at her. "Jake," he said, without interest. "Let's go, Sherman." "Sure thing," the dealer said. The cards came out with a snap onto the green surface of the table. 6 for her, a 10 for Jake, and the dealer had a 7. Card 2, 8 for her, 5 for Jake. "Hit," she said. A 5 followed. "Stand." Jake just tapped his cards. A 7 followed. "Bad luck. Bust." The dealer flipped his second card over, revealing a jack. Cynthia was a winner. The hands continued. Win-win, bust, lose, win. A hit on a soft 7-ace combo chased by a queen of diamonds got her another win. Jack won as well, and it seemed that either despite Sherman's skill with the cards or because of it, he was on a losing streak today. After 7 hands, Jake collected his chips and left. "Pleasure," was all he said as he got up. "Are you still in, ma'am?" Sherman asked quietly. "Sure," she said. She was up somewhere in the 17 grand neighborhood and had nearly resigned herself to the fact that she might just have to go home a winner and come back another day, or switch tables. The next hand came out, and she led with a 10-ace combo, a natural, another 7,500 up. The next hand she doubled down and won again. It seemed impossible for her to lose. A waitress walked by, and she ordered a refill of her gin and tonic. Whatever the house gin, it was floral and fantastic, not overly pine-burdened. She looked around for a moment, and then she looked back at Sherman. She saw a small smirk on his face, but it quickly disappeared when their eyes met. He dealt again. She won. Another man joined them, introducing himself as Albert. He won too. Pretty soon, a third player joined the game, and then a fourth. They'd been watching, apparently, and this table was hot. Then another woman joined. Sherman seemed to be enjoying himself. The winnings started to slow, the odds coming back to a more equal number of wins and losses. She even started to lose, but she didn't lose enough. She was much too far up to make today a loss unless she was willing to put in a number of hours here, which she wasn't. As she finished her drink, her vision blurred. Cynthia wiped at her eyes, hoping to clear it, but nothing seemed to work. She felt a little lightheaded and tried to remember when the last time she ate something had been. For some reason, that part of her day seemed fuzzy and distant too. Something was wrong. Her instincts told her she'd been drugged, but she couldn't imagine why, or who would have done it. She needed to get out of here, maybe even with help from her driver, the one who dropped her off in the first place. Of course, he wouldn't be able to get in the back room. She texted him. What she meant to say was, back of the club, but she couldn't see exactly what letters she'd sent. Cynthia stood, staggered, nearly fell, held onto the table, looked at the pile of chips she had, wondering if she could actually pick them up. "Seems doubtful," she said. She swayed. "Hey," she tried to say, but her voice seemed far away now, too. "I'm in deep trouble here," she thought. Then she pitched forward. Hands grabbed her, and she saw a face, the player from earlier. Jake, had it been? "I got you," he said. "Hang in there." She tried to mumble, "Thanks," but her eyelids were really heavy. She closed them and couldn't get them open again. A round, yellow light filled her vision. The sun? Not unless the sky had gone from blue to a pea soup green and developed cracks like plaster. Plaster? Cynthia tried to identify where she was, with no luck. Turning her head to the left sent a bolt of pain through her skull, and her ears rang. The wall in front of her was blank, the same sickening color as the ceiling. The floor consisted of yellowing tiles that appeared to be the victims of never-cleaned piss puddles of varying shapes. The air smelled stale, with an undertone of bleach. She felt around with her hands. She seemed to be in a bed of some sort, but the mattress was hard and rough. A wool blanket, also rough, covered her, but she appeared to still be dressed, as far as she could tell. Carefully, she moved her head to look right, and saw the shoes she'd been wearing sitting on a gray chair, the plastic kind often found in bus stations and welfare office waiting areas in the 90s. There were no windows, no television, no IV stand or evidence that this was an old hospital. In fact, it seemed more like an old army barracks. There was a door in one wall. It was steel gray and had a window in it, one of those with the wire running through the glass. She tried to move her arms and found that they were not restrained in any way. She tried to sit up, but her head mounted such a protest there was no way she could bring herself to do so. She moved her feet, finding that they too were not bound. She closed her eyes. "Pull yourself together," she thought. She needed to move, figure out where she was, if that door was locked, and how she could get out of here. The last thing she remembered was standing at the blackjack table, and someone, Jake, catching her as she fell. Before she could try to move again, she heard the door click and then open. She turned her head that way. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Jake said, stepping aside. "You have a visitor." "Where?" she tried to say, but found her throat to be dry and too raw to speak. "I'll get you some water," he said. He stepped out, and a small man took his place. It was Sherman, the dealer from the night before, only now dressed in small khakis and a blue polo shirt. Hey there, he said. How are you feeling? Sorry for the drama. What's going on? She managed to creak. A second later, Jake returned with a glass of water, and she took it from him with trembling hands. He helped her to a seated position, which still caused her head to pound, but not quite as much as it had. She drank, the cool water immediately quieting her angry throat. Give it a minute, Jake said. Who are you guys? What's happening, and where is my money? One thing at a time, Sherman said. His voice was as small as he was, with a light accent she couldn't place. I'm Sherman, if you recall. How much do you remember from last evening? Not much, she answered. Not after my second drink. Again, apologies for that. Did you drug me? She swung her feet, dangling them off the edge of the odd bed. Sherman stepped back a little, and Jake handed her the water again. She drank. I did not, he said. Jake here did. Why? Because you are about to make a very large mistake. What do you mean? Tell me your name. Cynthia, she said. Cynthia Quinn. Not that one. Your real name. I don't know what you mean. Jake laughed, and she looked over at him. The stoic, disinterested player from the night before was gone, replaced by a pleasant-looking man, well-muscled, young, blonde. Ex-military? Cop? Who do you work for? Janice maintained her cover but studied the room and weighed her odds of escape. Sherman would likely be no problem. Jake, though? Look, we're on your side. At least we think so, Jake said. Why don't we start with who you are, then? She asked. I'm Jake. Your real name, she said sarcastically. Who do you work for? The large man looked to Sherman and got a nod. My real name is Jake. Jake Vollmer, DEA. DEA? Yeah, this is Sherman. We've been undercover here for the better part of 2 years. Why DEA? Who do you work for? Depends on the day of the week, she said, but basically the FBI. How long have you been undercover? 3 years. Let me guess. Predatory gambling is your angle? It is. Ours is the drug angle. I didn't know there was a drug angle. Sherman smirked. That is the angle. The rest is all a diversion. The club last night? A rival to the primary organization we are after. And that is? Solitaire. According to them, I'm the 5 of diamonds. You've been under for 2 years? I just went double a few years ago. I joined the organization in 1987. What? She asked. It's a bit much, I know, but we need your help. I'm very confused, but I'm listening. That's all we ask at the moment, Sherman said. Let's go somewhere more comfortable. Jake helped her to her feet, and she grabbed her shoes and slipped them on. Be ready, Jake said. I think we're about to blow your mind. He held the door open for her, and she stepped through into a luxurious hallway. Welcome to Operation Go Fish, he said. Thanks for listening to the Solitaire Series, Episode 20, The 5 of Diamonds. Stay tuned for the next episode in the series, The 10 of Spades.